Question 4a. Explain how prophetic messages were written. So, you are supposed to explain, not write 2 words, because most of you are writing 2 to 3 words. The prophetic messages were either written down by the prophets themselves or dictated by a scribe. For example, Jeremiah and Baruch. So they were written down by the prophets themselves or dictated to a scribe. For example, Jeremiah dictated the prophetic message to Baruch, who was a scribe. Some of the prophetic messages were preserved as oral tradition by the disciples of the prophets. So here you're not supposed to say oral tradition. You're supposed to explain. You say some of them were preserved as what? Oral traditions by the disciples of the prophets. Another point is that God dictated to the prophets what was to be put down. So God dictated to the prophets what to be written. Also, there was collection, compiling, and writing of the prophetic messages over a long period of time. So the messages were collected. And then after you collect them, you do what? You compile them. And then so that you can be able to write them. And this was done over a long period of time. Also, the scribes reorganized. The scribes reorganized prophetic messages according to the subject matter. Disciples of the prophets preserved the teachings of their masters and then passed the oral traditions to the subsequent generations. So they first preserved their master's teachings, that is the disciples of the prophets. They preserved the master's teachings. So when you're preserving something, it's like an oral tradition. I think you've done it in English. And then they passed it to what? To generations. Subsequent generations. So the coming generations. Question 4b. Explain committed sins committed by Israel that would be punished by God according to Prophet Amos. The sins committed by Israel that would be punished by God according to Prophet Amos. So what were the sins? The people of Israel sinned by selling people into slavery or selling honest people into slavery who couldn't pay their debt. So that was the first sin. So sins committed by Israel that would be punished by God according to Prophet Amos. So the first sin was selling honest people to what? To slavery. They were selling them in order to pay their debt. So if someone doesn't pay your debt, you sell them. Also, number 2, trampling on the weak or the helpless, or you push the poor in basic terms. Pushing the poor out of their way. When you're trampling to someone, it's like you unawakanyaga. Also, another sin was a man and his wife had intercourse with the same slave woman. A man and his father having intercourse with the same slave woman. Drinking wine in the temple. Drinking wine taken from those who owed them money and drinking it in the temple. So drinking wine taken from those who owed them money. So drinking wine in the temple, this wine was taken from those who owed them money. Another sin was that they filled their mansions with crime, with things taken by crime and violence. Women of Samaria mistreated the weak. Or you can say women of Samaria oppressed the poor. Also, Israel took bribe and twisted justice. They took bribe and twisted justice. They also worshipped images of Sakuth. And then there was also merchants overcharged and used faulty scales. So using of faulty scales and overcharging of the merchants. Or you can say that they used a higher price. They cheated the customers. It's still the same point. Question 4C. Explain 6 factors that may lead people away from the worship of God today. You are told to explain. And someone tells me they worship. Have you explained? Look at your answers. You're told to explain 6 factors that may lead people away from the worship of God today. Social injustices which may make people conclude that God has deserted them. There is also permissiveness which may lead to loss of religious values. That is, permissiveness is too much freedom. There is too much freedom which may lead people to may lead the loss of religious values. Like for example, nowadays you see a boy and a girl together smooching on the way, and no one is asking them, and they are very young. Or you can see a very young boy just smoking, and no one is asking them. You just pass by them like you're not. Or you see, especially when you're at close school, you see a young man who's drunk and falling, and no one is asking. Or we are traveling together in the same matatu and they're drinking. They're drinking, smoking, and even the passengers are not questioning it. That is loss of religious values. There is also urbanization may lead people to lose their religions and moral values. That is, you move to urban. Because maybe when you're in a rural place, you used to come together easily and worship. There is freedom of worship, which may lead to misinterpretation of the scripture. This was highly seen when you had close school. What is the name of that fella?